In a galaxy once ruled by ruthless alien conquerors, humanity was thought to be a fleeting, fragile species, easily crushed under the weight of powerful empires. For centuries, the Zeren, a brutal race of hyper-intelligent warlords, dominated the stars, erasing civilizations and enslaving the weak. But when humanity was on the brink of extinction, something extraordinary happened. They refused to die. They fought back with an intensity that no one had expected, and over time, they evolved into the galaxy's most formidable force. Now, with unimaginable technologies and an unbreakable will, humanity has returned, and the Zaren's reign of terror is about to come to a devastating end. As the humans rise from the ashes of their past, they will not only reclaim their place in the stars, but will reshape the very future of the galaxy itself. The question is no longer whether they will survive, but whether the galaxy is ready for what humanity will become. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, countless worlds were once governed by powerful alien species who believed themselves to be the apex of existence. Among these species, the Zeren stood out as one of the most feared and formidable. Their reputation was built on their superior intellect and brutal approach to conquest. To them, other races were mere obstacles to their dominance, and they saw the universe as their territory to control and shape as they pleased. The Zaren's empire spanned across many star systems, their influence stretching into every corner of the galaxy. Their military might was unrivaled, and their technology was far beyond that of any other species, including humanity. The Zeren believed in their superiority so strongly that they saw no need to concern themselves with the lives of lesser species. To them, any race that posed a challenge to their expansion was simply another target to conquer or annihilate. They had achieved such power and success that they considered themselves the ultimate force in the galaxy. With ships capable of destroying entire star systems and weapons powerful enough to reduce cities to ash, the Zeren felt invincible, confident that no species could stand in their way for long. In their eyes, Earth was just another small, insignificant world. The humans who inhabited it were primitive and weak, far behind in terms of technology and military strength. They had no doubt that when they set their sights on Earth, it would fall easily into their grasp. The Zeren did not even consider the possibility of a meaningful resistance, dismissing the idea of humans being a threat before even making their move. The people of Earth, at that time, were unaware of the immense danger looming over them, living their lives far removed from the galactic struggles unfolding in the stars. For centuries, the Zaren's conquest of Earth seemed inevitable. The humans were outmatched in every way, unable to fight back against the overwhelming power of the Zeren forces. Earth's military had no weapons capable of challenging the might of the Zeren ships, and any attempts at resistance were quickly crushed. The Zeren believed that once they had eradicated humanity's defenses, they could move on to other worlds, leaving no trace of the human race behind. It was a standard conquest, one the Zeren had carried out countless times across the galaxy. The galaxy itself had grown used to the Zaren's dominance, and most species had accepted their place in the new order. The Zaren's brutal methods of conquest, while feared, had become the status quo. There were no voices of dissent in the vastness of space, as the galaxy seemed resigned to the fact that the Zeren would reign forever. Earth, too, seemed doomed to be erased from the star maps, its people crushed under the heel of the Zaren's invasion. The rest of the galaxy observed Zaren's reign as a matter of course, unable or unwilling to challenge the power of the Empire. To the Zeren, the idea that any species could resist them was laughable. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, and each time, their enemies were defeated with ease. The Zeren never considered that humanity might possess something more than technology or weapons. They had no concept of the human spirit, the relentless drive to survive and adapt in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Zeren believed that strength was defined by technology and brute force, and by these standards, humanity had no hope of prevailing. As the Zeren continued their domination, they grew increasingly complacent. They had wiped out countless civilizations without a second thought, and Earth seemed no different. There was no fear of retaliation, no concern for what might come next. The Zarin believed they had already written humanity's fate, extinction. Their intelligence and technology had given them an unmatched edge, and they assumed that nothing could change that. The Zarin had forgotten one crucial element that would come to define humanity's future: the ability to adapt, survive, and ultimately fight back. In their minds, the fate of Earth was sealed, and humanity was nothing more than an afterthought, a brief interruption in the grand plan of galactic conquest. The Zarin had built their empire on the belief that their power was unchallengeable, and they could not imagine a scenario where their superiority would be questioned. Their arrogance was their greatest weakness, and it was this arrogance that would eventually lead to their downfall. While the Zarin thought themselves the rulers of the galaxy, the humans were silently preparing for a future that would change everything. The Zarin's first steps toward Earth were calculated and precise, driven by their belief in their inevitable victory. They dispatched vast fleets of warships, their advanced technology and weapons ready to crush any resistance. The Zarin saw the planet as an easy target. Its inhabitants were technologically inferior, and its defenses were laughable in comparison to the might of the Zarin Empire. Earth's militaries, though courageous, were no match for the alien war machines, which could destroy entire cities in the blink of an eye. The Zarin's approach was swift, and within weeks, Earth's cities were under siege, its skies filled with the dark silhouettes of alien ships. When the invasion began, the humans were in no position to mount a coordinated defense. The Zarin were masters of interstellar warfare, and their assault on Earth was swift and brutal. Bombardments from space began almost immediately, leveling key military installations, power plants, and cities. It wasn't long before the Zarin made their first move toward global domination, neutralizing Earth's most powerful weapons and leaving the human population helpless and disoriented. In the face of such overwhelming firepower, the humans could do little more than scatter and try to survive, hoping against hope that they could somehow resist the inevitable. Earth's leaders initially struggled to coordinate any meaningful response to the invasion. There were brief moments of hope, where pockets of humanity managed to gather resistance movements and wage small guerrilla wars against the invaders. However, these efforts were always met with brutal retaliation. The Zarin were not content with mere conquest. They sought the complete annihilation of any force that dared defy them. Every attempt to strike back only led to more destruction, with cities reduced to rubble and the human resistance forces hunted down and exterminated. The Zarin's technological advantage was so great that they made any attempt at resistance seem futile. The human population, now scattered across the globe and in hiding, faced unimaginable hardships. As entire cities were destroyed and millions lost their lives, the remaining survivors clung to the hope that somehow a way would be found to push back against the Zarin. Despite the overwhelming odds, humans never fully gave in to despair. In the underground bunkers, hidden bases, and small enclaves of resistance, a spark of defiance continued to burn. While the Zarin had intended to wipe out humanity completely, they had underestimated the strength of the human spirit. Even in the darkest hours, humans refused to be reduced to nothing. From the beginning of the invasion, the Zarin had assumed that their technology would give them a quick and easy victory. They employed advanced weapons capable of destroying entire cities, deployed massive fleets to patrol Earth's atmosphere, and used their vast intelligence networks to monitor and crush any pockets of resistance. In their arrogance, they believed humanity's primitive technology could not even begin to pose a threat. They underestimated the one thing they did not understand: the adaptability and resilience of humans. For all their technological might, the Zarin failed to recognize that humanity had an unyielding will to survive. Though Earth seemed lost, the Zarin's confidence was their downfall. They believed that once the human military forces were decimated and the major cities were destroyed, the planet would fall into submission. What they did not anticipate was humanity's ability to adapt in the face of overwhelming destruction. Small groups of humans, many of them former soldiers, engineers, and scientists, began to pool their knowledge, developing new weapons and strategies to fight back. These efforts were initially small and isolated, but they were the beginning of a slow but determined resurgence. It would take years, but this underground movement would form the foundation of humanity's eventual resistance. As the invasion continued, the Zaren maintained their belief that victory was only a matter of time. They believed that humans would eventually give up and accept their fate. They had faced many worlds in their long history of conquest, and every time, the conquered species had either been eradicated or brought under their control. The Zaren thought they were simply following the same script that had worked so many times before. They could not fathom that the humans they were attempting to exterminate were capable of rising from the ashes, learning from their mistakes, and adapting to the ever-evolving threat of the Zaren Empire. The Zaren's overconfidence, however, would be their undoing. While they focused on their relentless assault, the humans were quietly preparing for the day they would strike back. The invaders had underestimated the tenacity of humanity, and as the war raged on, they began to make one crucial mistake after another. They thought they could wipe out humanity with brute force, not realizing that the humans were learning, adapting, and evolving with every loss. By the time the Zaren realized they had miscalculated, it was already too late. The first signs of humanity's resurgence were starting to show. As the Zaren's invasion continued, they began to realize that their initial assumption, that humanity would easily succumb to their superior technology, was far from accurate. Despite their overwhelming power, the human spirit was proving to be an unbreakable force. The Zaren's attempts to crush humanity only seemed to fuel a growing resistance. What began as scattered efforts of defiance slowly evolved into more coordinated movements, each one more determined and resourceful than the last. The idea that humans could resist on such a large scale was something the Zaren had never anticipated. Instead of being crushed by their advanced weapons, humans adapted, evolved, and began to fight back with an intensity that surprised their invaders. The resilience of humanity lay not only in their will to survive, but also in their ability to innovate under pressure. Faced with technological inferiority, humans began to reverse engineer and adapt the remnants of Zaren weaponry. They scavenged and salvaged whatever they could find, using the wreckage of the Zaren's devastating weapons against them. It was an ingenious response to the overwhelming odds they faced, and it showcased humanity's unique ability to adapt to adversity. In the shadows of ruined cities, human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, combining the knowledge of Earth's best minds to create new, more powerful weapons and tactics. The human resistance was not confined to traditional warfare. Guerrilla tactics, cyber warfare, and even psychological operations became key elements of their strategy. Small bands of fighters learned to outmaneuver the Zaren's technologically advanced forces, using the terrain and their knowledge of the planet to their advantage. These resistance movements were not only fighting to survive, they were fighting for the chance to rebuild their world and one day take the fight to the Zaren. The human capacity for tactical ingenuity proved to be a formidable asset, turning the tide in ways that the Zaren could not have foreseen. Over time, these pockets of resistance began to form larger, more organized coalitions. As the humans adapted and innovated, they also found ways to counteract the Zaren's superior weaponry. One of the most critical advancements was the development of stealth technology and electronic warfare. The Zaren, with all their technological prowess, were not immune to the vulnerabilities of their own systems. Humans exploited these weaknesses, launching targeted strikes that disrupted Zaren communications, jammed their sensors, and interfered with their weaponry. What had initially been seen as a simple, weak species now became a growing threat to the Zaren's plans. With every small victory, the human resistance gained confidence. What was once a collection of isolated, ragtag groups of survivors began to coalesce into a formidable force. Fighters from all corners of Earth began to unite, pooling their resources, skills, and knowledge. The human will to fight back grew stronger, and so did their determination to avenge the destruction of their cities and the loss of their people. The Zaren, who had initially viewed humans as nothing more than a fleeting nuisance, now faced a coordinated and increasingly well-armed force that they had not prepared for. The true turning point came when the humans were able to launch a successful counteroffensive. Utilizing their new technologies and strategies, they attacked Zarin supply lines, crippled their infrastructure, and began to push the invaders back from Earth's surface. This unexpected resurgence sent shockwaves through the Zarin command. For the first time, they were forced to reconsider their earlier belief that humanity was nothing more than an easy target. The once complacent Zarin leadership was now scrambling to find a way to deal with this new, unexpected challenge. The Zarin's underestimation of humanity's potential had blinded them to the true nature of their enemy. The Zarin had believed that strength came solely from technology and military might, but the humans were proving that the will to survive and the drive to innovate could level the playing field. This realization forced the Zarin to confront the fact that they had miscalculated their strategy. Humanity, far from being weak or easily defeated, had proven itself to be adaptable, resourceful, and capable of rising to any challenge. As the conflict raged on, the Zarin's confidence began to wane. They had underestimated humanity's resilience and ability to learn and adapt. What had started as an easy conquest for the Zarin quickly turned into a protracted war that drained their resources and stretched their forces thin. The Zarin's advanced weapons, while still powerful, were no longer enough to guarantee victory. The humans had found a way to fight back, and their resolve only grew stronger with each battle. The Zarin had underestimated humanity's capacity to evolve, and now they were facing the consequences of their fatal misjudgment. As the war between the Zarin and humanity continued, Earth's inhabitants were still reeling from the devastation of the initial invasion. However, amidst the rubble and destruction, something remarkable began to happen. A signal, a faint but unmistakable low-frequency pulse, was sent out from Earth's orbit. This signal was not an ordinary transmission. It was a deliberate declaration. It was a message to the galaxy, a statement of humanity's return. Though the Zarin had assumed that Earth's people were either annihilated or too weak to pose any future threat, this signal proved them wrong. It carried with it a profound message. Humanity was far from finished. The Zarin initially dismissed the signal as nothing more than a relic of an ancient conflict. They believed it to be a meaningless artifact, perhaps a remnant of an old war or an automated message that had somehow survived from the past. To them, the idea that humanity could send such a sophisticated transmission from their destroyed planet seemed implausible. The Zarin had long since assumed that Earth and its people were irrelevant in the grand scheme of galactic power. They did not take the signal seriously, brushing it off as a harmless echo of a forgotten age. However, as time passed, the Zarin's brightest minds began to investigate the signal more closely. What they initially thought was an anomaly quickly revealed itself to be something far more intricate. The signal was not a random noise, but a highly complex, structured communication. It was deliberate and purposeful, designed to pierce the noise of the galaxy and be heard by anyone capable of decoding it. Zarin's best scientists found themselves unable to ignore the truth. This was no random transmission, but a sign that humanity had not only survived but had begun to regroup and rebuild. At first, Zarin's reaction was one of disbelief. They had long since written humanity off as a defeated species. The idea that humans could organize themselves to such an extent after suffering the destruction of their cities and the decimation of their military forces was inconceivable. The Zarin were unaccustomed to seeing a species they had conquered rise up from the ashes. Their arrogance prevented them from realizing that humanity had the will and the means to recover. Yet, as the weeks passed, the evidence became undeniable. The signal was not a fluke, and it was not going away. The implications of the signal were immense. It suggested that humanity had not only survived, but had begun to rebuild its strength. While the Zarin had expected Earth to become a silent, forgotten world, they now realized that humans were preparing to make their presence known again. The signal was more than a cry for help. It was a declaration of intent. It made it clear that humanity was not simply going to accept their fate. They were preparing for something much greater. This realization rattled the Zarin leadership, who had assumed they had crushed humanity's will to fight. As the Zarin scrambled to analyze the signal, they soon discovered a startling truth. Humans had developed new technologies. They had used the time since the initial invasion to innovate and create powerful new tools of war. The signal was not just a message. It was a signal of impending change, a warning that the humans were returning, and they were not the same weak species they once were. The Zarin were now faced with the unsettling reality that humanity had learned, adapted, and was now capable of challenging their might. This was no longer a species on the brink of extinction, but one preparing to reclaim its place in the galaxy. The Zarin leadership, initially dismissing the signal, was now forced to confront the full scope of what it meant. The humans had not only survived, but had begun to thrive in the shadows, developing the technology and strategies needed to challenge the Zarin. The signal was the first sign of humanity's resurgence, and it would soon be followed by something even more significant. The Zarin had underestimated the human capacity for survival and innovation, and now they were beginning to see the consequences of that mistake. Humanity's signal was more than just a message. It was a turning point. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in the conflict, one where humanity would no longer cower in fear, but would rise up to meet their invaders head-on. The Zarin, for all their power and technology, had made one critical error. They had underestimated the resilience of humanity. The signal from Earth was a wake-up call, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity was far from defeated. And as the Zarin came to realize this, they would soon find themselves facing a force they had never expected. A united and resourceful humanity ready to fight for their survival and their future. As the Zarin began to understand the implications of humanity's signal, the rumors of human fleets began to spread. Initially dismissed as nothing more than whispers or myths, these stories soon evolved into undeniable facts. The Zarin, who had believed their total annihilation of humanity's military infrastructure left no possibility for resistance, were now confronted with the reality that humanity had rebuilt itself from the wreckage. The first sightings of human warships sent shockwaves through the Zarin leadership, who had never expected humanity to regain the strength to pose a significant threat. The humans had not only survived, they had rebuilt their military power, creating fleets from the remnants of their earlier wars. The human warships that began appearing in Zarin space were unlike anything the Zarin had encountered before. The once feeble vessels of Earth were now nearly indestructible, designed with advanced technology that had been adapted and evolved from their past conflicts. The ships were built with materials and engineering that made them resilient against the Zarin's weapons. These new human ships moved with a precision and swiftness that rivaled the fastest Zarin warships, a stark contrast to the slow, vulnerable vessels that had once been at humanity's disposal. The Zarin were taken aback by this sudden and unexpected development, as it was clear that the humans had far surpassed their previous technological limitations. One of the most striking features of these new human ships was the cutting-edge weapons they deployed. The Zarin had long relied on overwhelming firepower to secure victories, but the humans had developed weapons that were not only advanced but far more deadly than anything they had seen before. Human energy weapons disrupted the very fabric of space-time, creating shock waves that could obliterate entire fleets in an instant. The Zarin had always believed their weapons to be the most powerful in the galaxy, but now they were witnessing a force unlike anything they had ever imagined. Human ships were not only a physical threat. They were capable of causing devastating damage to the very space through which they traveled. As the first encounters between human and Zarin forces took place, the Zarin quickly realized that the humans had mastered more than just new technology. They had also learned how to use it to their advantage. One of the most effective tactics humans used was the deployment of holographic decoys. These decoys, which mimicked the appearance of human ships, baffled the Zarin's advanced targeting systems, rendering their once dependable precision strikes ineffective. The decoys created chaos on the battlefield, confusing Zarin forces and making it difficult for them to distinguish between real human vessels and their fake counterparts. This tactical innovation gave humanity a crucial advantage in their early engagements. The human warships also exhibited remarkable levels of coordination. The human fleet, although still smaller in size compared to the vast Zarin armada, fought with such precision and teamwork that it overwhelmed the Zarin forces. Every movement seemed planned, each ship working in tandem to outmaneuver their enemies. The Zarin had grown accustomed to striking quickly and decisively, but now they faced an opponent who was not only capable of holding their ground, but also counterattacking with incredible effectiveness. The Zarin's superiority in numbers and firepower was no longer enough to guarantee victory. The first major confrontation between the two fleets occurred at the outer reaches of the Zarin homeworld. Human ships descended like a storm, their movements fast and relentless. The Zarin had no time to react as the humans' advanced weapons and tactical innovations overwhelmed their defenses. The human fleet attacked with such intensity and precision that the Zarin forces were unable to mobilize in time to defend themselves properly. The battle, which could have been a slaughter for the humans, instead turned into a decisive victory. Within minutes, the human fleet had decimated the Zarin forces, leaving them stunned and disoriented. The once invincible Zarin military was now facing a new reality. Humanity was no longer the weak, helpless species they had once thought. The aftermath of the battle left the Zarin leadership shaken. General Calls, a high-ranking officer in the Zarin War Council, was left speechless by the scale of the loss. He could hardly believe that the humans, whom the Zarin had once considered an insignificant threat, had not only survived but had completely turned the tables. His voice trembled with disbelief as he muttered, "We thought them weak." For the Zarin, this was the first sign that their empire was no longer invincible, and that the humans, whom they had underestimated for so long, were now a force to be reckoned with. The once proud Zarin military might now seem fragile and vulnerable in the face of this new human threat. This unexpected turn of events marked the beginning of the end for the Zarin Empire. The humans' technological advancements, their innovative strategies, and their unparalleled will to survive had created a force capable of striking at the heart of the Zarin Empire. The Zarin, who had spent centuries dominating the galaxy, now found themselves on the defensive. Every battle lost to humanity was a crushing blow to their pride and power. The Zarin had underestimated the human capacity for resilience, and now they were paying the price for their arrogance. What had once seemed like an easy conquest was quickly becoming an impossible war that they could no longer win. With the Zarin forces reeling from the initial defeat, it became clear that humanity was not only capable of fighting back, they were on the verge of something much greater. The human fleet, now bolstered by new technologies and strategies, began to advance further into Zarin territory. The Zarin Empire, once an unstoppable force, was now in full retreat. Humanity had demonstrated to the galaxy that they were no longer the meek, desperate species they had once been. They had adapted, evolved, and become a formidable power capable of challenging the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The humans had not only survived, they had emerged stronger than ever before, and the Zarin now had to face the full force of their resurgence. As the human fleet continued to advance deeper into Zarin-controlled space, the Zarin leadership was forced to confront the full scope of their miscalculation. They had underestimated humanity's potential for recovery, resilience, and innovation. The once feeble humans, who had been scattered and seemingly defeated, were now rising with an intensity that defied the Zarin's expectations. The Zarin had made one fatal error. They had thought of humanity as a weak, broken species that could be easily crushed. Now they were witnessing a growing human power that seemed to be everywhere. The humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to reclaim what they had lost, and they were winning. The Zarin had assumed that their superior technology and military strategies would make their empire invulnerable. For centuries, they had dominated the galaxy, pushing their way through countless civilizations, often leaving no survivors in their wake. The Zarin had always believed that their advanced weapons and technologies gave them an unassailable advantage. However, what they had failed to understand was that the human spirit could not be broken so easily. Humanity's ability to adapt, to learn from its failures, and to fight back with unwavering determination had caught the Zarin off guard. The Zarin had relied too heavily on their technological supremacy, forgetting that true strength also comes from resilience and the ability to endure. As the human forces pushed deeper into Zarin territory, it became clear that the humans had not only survived, but had grown stronger with each battle. Their fleets were not simply surviving, they were thriving. The Zarin, who had expected to face a defeated enemy, were now encountering a force that was rapidly gaining ground, both strategically and technologically. The humans had mastered the art of warfare in ways the Zarin had not anticipated. Their advanced weapons, once thought impossible, were now being used to dismantle Zarin defenses with precision. Each battle, each victory, added to the growing momentum of the human forces. The humans' technological advancements were staggering. They had developed weapons that not only surpassed the Zarin's best, but also disrupted the fabric of space-time itself. The Zarin's once dominant fleets were now no match for the speed and firepower of the human vessels. The humans had crafted ships that could endure the harshest of conditions, using materials and designs that made their ships nearly indestructible. The Zarin, for all their superiority, could not keep up with the pace of human innovation. What had once seemed like an insurmountable technological gap was quickly closing, and humanity was pulling ahead. As the Zarin forces struggled to regroup, they found themselves on the defensive. Their vast fleets, once seen as an unstoppable force, were now crumbling in the face of humanity's relentless attacks. The Zarin had always been the hunters, but now they were becoming the hunted. The human fleets, though smaller in number, fought with such efficiency and effectiveness that they were decimating Zarin forces wherever they went. The Zarin's advanced targeting systems, once regarded as infallible, were being outwitted by human tactics. The Zarin had failed to account for humanity's ability to adapt to their technology, and now they were paying the price. It was not just humanity's technological advancements that were reshaping the conflict. It was their resolve. The humans were not fighting merely to defend their home world. They were fighting to reclaim their place in the galaxy. The Zarin had taken everything from them, but humanity was showing that they would not be easily subdued. The Zarin may have had the power to destroy cities and entire fleets, but they did not understand the strength of a species that had survived centuries of oppression, war, and hardship. The humans were fighting not just for survival, but for their future. They were determined to ensure that their legacy would not be erased, that their people would not be forgotten. The Zarin, once the rulers of the galaxy, now found themselves at the mercy of the very species they had sought to annihilate. The human forces, having overcome seemingly insurmountable odds, were now advancing with purpose. The Zarin had expected to wipe out humanity, but instead, they were witnessing the rise of a new galactic power. Humanity was no longer the weak, helpless species they had once thought. They had evolved, adapted, and grown stronger in the crucible of war. The Zarin were now forced to fight for survival, facing an enemy whose strength and will to win were unmatched. As humanity continued to press forward, the Zarin began to realize that their empire was crumbling. The battles they had once fought with ease were now becoming increasingly difficult, and their once great military might was no longer a guarantee of victory. The Zarin were facing a new reality. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were the dominant force, and the Zarin had no choice but to face the consequences of their long-held arrogance. The final collapse of the Zarin Empire was inevitable, and it was humanity's unyielding spirit, combined with their newfound strength, that would bring about their fall. The Zarin had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price for their mistake. The final confrontation between the human forces and the Zarin Empire was about reclaiming their future. As the human fleets continued to push deeper, the Zarin had held the galaxy in their grip. The battle for the heart, destroying civilizations and erasing species that stood in their way. Having realized the humanity had been one of the most prominent victims, now found themselves facing a determined and powerful enemy that they could no longer ignore. But through unimaginable hardships, who had once been humanity, were now in full control of the conflict. The war with the Zarin had been more than just a battle for survival. Being oppressed. It was a battle for identity, now for the right to exist claim their destiny in the galaxy. The
humans had
not
only
adapted
not
to the
just
harsh realities of
survival,
war,
but to
had
reclaim
become
their
experts
future
in as masters
crafting
of their
strategies
own
and
destiny.
technologies
As
that put them
humanity's
on par with the
influence
most
spread,
advanced
the message to
civilizations
other
in the
species
galaxy.
was clear.
As the human fleet
Humanity was
approached
no
the heart
longer
of
a
Zarin
race to be
territory,
feared for its
the Zarin
fragility
knew
or
that this would be
weakness,
their last
but for its
stand.
strength
They had
and
been overwhelmed by
the
the
Zarin had thought
relentless
they could
advance of
eradicate humanity from
and their
existence.
technological
But in doing
superiority.
so, the Zarin had no
unknowingly
more
created a
tricks left
force
up their
more
sleeves.
formidable
Their
than they
best
had
fleets
ever
were in
imagined.
disarray.
The human
and their
race
military
was now the
leaders were
galaxy's
struggling
dominant
to maintain
power,
control.
a symbol of
Despite
resilience
their vast
and a reminder
resources
that no
and centuries
force,
of dominance,
no matter how
the
great,
Zarin could see that they
suppress
were
the
losing
will
their
of a
grip on
determined
the
people.
galaxy.
The very
once
species
unimaginable
that had once been
prospect of
scattered
defeat
and
was
broken
now a
now
reality,
controlled
and they were
vast
helpless
stretches
to
of the
stop
galaxy.
In the
Their
midst
fleets
of this
patrolling
final
the stars with
confrontation,
unmatched
the human
authority.
leadership made
Humanity's
its presence
rise
known.
was not only
General
marked by
Elias
military
Novak,
victories,
one of
but also
humanity's
by the
most
ways
respected
in which
and
they
battle-hardened
rebuilt the
leaders.
galaxy.
They were not
as the
content with
figurehead
simply
of this new
conquering
era.
the remnants
Clad
of
in
the
the
Zarin.
advanced armor of
Humanity
set out to
greatest
restore
warriors
orders and prosperity.
Novak was a
across
symbol
the
of the
galaxy.
transformation
Colonies that had
humanity
once
had
been
undergone.
subjugated by
He was not just a
alien
military
overlords
leader,
now
but a
thrived
representation
under human
of
leadership.
humanity's
The
journey
humans were
from
not
fragile
just
survivors
conquerors
to the
They were
dominant
builders
force in the galaxy.
forging new alliances.
His very presence
and
on the
creating a
battlefield
future
sent
where
a
other
clear
species
message
could
to the
coexist
Zarin.
under their protection.
Humanity had come to
The
take
once
back
divided
what was
human
theirs,
colonies now
and they would
united
not be
under a
stopped.
common purpose.
As Novak
forming
and
a
his forces
strong
descended
and
upon the
cohesive
Zarin
empire
capital,
that
the
stretched
sheer
across
power
the
and
stars.
coordination
Under
of
the
the
guidance of
human fleet
humanity,
became apparent.
the galaxy
human
was
ships,
transformed,
equipped
the
with
systems
new
that had once
forms
been
of weapons
ravaged
and
by the
technologies
wars
that
that disrupted the
past
Zarin's
now
defenses,
flourished.
began their
Technologies
assault
that
on
had
the
once
heart
been
of the Zarin
beyond
Empire.
imagination
The
were
Zarin,
now at the
though
fingertips
still
of the
possessing
human people,
great numbers,
and they shared
found
this
themselves
progress
helpless
with their new
against the
allies.
precision
The
and
remnants of the
strength
Zarin
of the human
Empire
attack.
were left to
The human
rebuild,
fleet tore
but
through
under
their
the
defenses
watchful
like a
eyes
storm,
of their conquerors,
dismantling the
there was
once
no
proud
place in this new
military
galaxy
might
for
of
the
kind of
Zarin
oppression
in a matter
and
of
tyranny.
hours.
The Zarin could
had once
only watch in
wielded.
horror.
Humanity's
as their
rise was
empire
not just a
crumbled before
military
them.
conquest.
Amid the chaos
It
of
was
the
a
battle,
promise of a better
Novak
future for
addressed
all
the
who
Zarin
were willing to
leadership.
join in.
His voice,
Despite their victory,
amplified through the
humanity
battle's holographic
remained
systems,
vigilant.
The
Echoed
Zarin had
across
taught
the
them
war-torn
that the
battlefield.
galaxy was a place
With every
where
word,
power could
Novak
shift
made
in
it
the
clear
blink
that
of an eye.
humanity's rise
Humanity
was not
had
just a
learned
revenge
valuable
mission,
lessons
but
about
a
the
declaration
nature
of
of war,
humanity's new
resilience
role in the galaxy,
and the importance of
you once
never
thought of us as
underestimating
nothing.
an enemy.
He said,
Their victory was
you thought you could wipe
hard-earned,
us out,
and it was one
and
that
we
would
would
never be
disappear.
taken for granted.
But you were wrong.
While they had ascended
Humanity
to the role of
doesn't
rulers,
just survive.
they also
We
understood
conquer.
that their reign
And now,
could be challenged.
we are taking back
the
what
message
is
to any
ours.
who might threaten
These
them
words
was
were
clear.
more than just a
Humanity
declaration of victory.
would not be defeated.
They were a
again.
symbol of the
They had
new
reclaimed
order
their
that
place in the
humanity
stars,
had forged,
and they would protect
Zarin
it with
leaders,
all their might.
Once the
in the wake
proud
of their
rulers
victory,
of the galaxy,
humanity's
were
enemies
now
began to
powerless.
reconsider their
As Novak's
perceptions
words
of the species.
resonated throughout the
Once seen as
battlefield,
weak,
the
and
once mighty
vulnerable,
Zarin council
the humans had
was
proven
forced to
themselves to
kneel
be
before him.
fierce. This
and
was a moment
unyielding.
of utter
The fall of the
humiliation
Zarin
for the
had
Zarin,
sent shockwaves
who had once
through the
believed
galaxy,
themselves
forcing many to
invincible.
reevaluate
The tables had
their
turned,
understanding of what
and the
humanity
once feared
was
conquerors
capable
were
of.
now the
galaxy's
ones
once
mercy
dominant
of the
powers,
humans,
who had looked
the
on
submission
with
of the
disdain or
Zarin
pity of
leadership
humanity,
marked the official
now
end
realized
of their
that
empire.
underestimating the
Humanity
species came
in
at
its
a great
fierce
cost.
and
The
unyielding
Zarin had
drive
learned
for
that lesson too
survival
late,
and vengeance,
and their defeat
had not
became
only
a
defeated
warning
the
to all,
Zarin, but had
as the
fundamentally
galaxy changed
adjusted
the power
to this
dynamics
new
of the
era.
galaxy.
The
legacy
battle
of
that unfolded in the
humanity's
heart
rise
of the
began
Zarin
to take
Empire
shape.
was a decisive
No longer
one.
would the galaxy
But it was
be
not
a
just
place
about
where
powerful
military
alien
victory.
species.
It was about a
ruled with
shift in the
impunity.
galaxy's
Humanity
balance of
had not
power.
only claimed
The
their
Zarin,
future,
who had once
but they had
oppressed
also created a
countless
new
civilizations,
era where their
were
dominance
now
would be
vanquished.
vanquished.
The
They
Zarin
had
were
underestimated
gone,
humanity's
their empire fallen,
resilience
and
their
capacity
people
for
humbled.
growth.
Humanity
The
had
humans
proven
had taken back
that they
their
were no
place in the
longer the
galaxy
meek species
and had
of the
proven that they
past,
would
but
never
the
again
rulers
be
of a new
ruled by
age.
anyone.
Their
This
return to
victory was a
power would be
testament to the
remembered for the
millennia,
human spirit,
a testament
and the
to their
will to
strength,
fight for their
adaptability,
survival
and future.
unwavering
In the
determination.
aftermath of the conflict,
the galaxy would
the
never
galaxy
forget the
witnessed
truth
a
that
dramatic
humanity had
transformation.
demonstrated.
The humans were
did
no
not
longer the
simply
hunted,
destroy the
but the
Zaren,
hunters. They rebuilt
would
the
shape the
very
galaxy
fabric
as
of
they
the
saw
galaxy
fit.
itself. The once oppressed colonies that had been under the control of alien overlords began to thrive under human leadership. The survivors of the Zaren Empire, those who had not perished in the conflict, were given a chance to rebuild, but under the watchful eyes of their new human rulers. The message was clear. Humanity had ascended to the highest echelons of galactic power, and any species that dared to challenge them would face the same fate as the Zaren. The defeat of the Zaren Empire signified the end of an era and the dawn of a new one. The humans had not only claimed their place in the stars, but they had also claimed their future. They were no longer the victims of a distant past. They were the rulers of a new age. The galaxy, which had once been dominated by the Zarin, was now under the control of humanity. The lesson had been learned by all who had witnessed the rise of humanity. Underestimate them at your peril. The humans had not only survived, they had conquered, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson they had taught. Following the collapse of the Zarin Empire, the galaxy entered a new era defined by humanity's dominance. The once feared Zarin, who had spent centuries oppressing and subjugating other species, were now a broken empire, reduced to remnants of their former glory. The humans, who had been underestimated and viewed as nothing more than a weak, fragile species, had proven their resilience and ability to adapt. With the fall of the Zarin, humanity had not only reclaimed their place in the galaxy, but they had also set the stage for a new order. The balance of power had shifted in an unprecedented way, and the galaxy would never be the same again.